Welcome, one and all, once again to the High Performance Human Podcast. It's your man Andy here, and I hope you and yours are all well. Now, this one, we're going to go galloping off in a slightly different direction, and I, for one, I am as keen as mustard. Kerryn Harvey is an athlete. I didn't ask her how she likes to define herself, but I'm going to define her as an athlete who has been through more challenges in her aspirations, in her goals, but more importantly, in her life than I reckon 90% of us have managed to get through. And not only has she managed to work herself through the fire of life and out the other end, she's done it with a degree of authority. She's done it with a degree of respect. She's done it with a degree of admiration that there's lots of people that you admire and you admire for the sake of admiring, but Kerryn is certainly one of those people that once you meet her, once you come across her and her attitude and the way she goes about her business and her game of life, admiration is the least of what you feel for this human. I have absolutely no issue in saying that. Kerryn Harvey, thank you so much for joining us on the High Performance Human Podcast. How the devil are you?
Thanks, Andy. Those words were way too kind. I am very well, thank you. I'm having a good day and lovely to be here to chat to you.
Oh, pleasure's all ours. And I tell you what, gang, pin your ears back. Over the course of the next 40 to 50, you are going to feel a sense of inspiration, and you're absolutely going to reckon you're going to think that you got no excuses to go do and achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve. Now, Kerryn Harvey, I coined you as an athlete, first and foremost. Is that a fair representation of who you are? I think that's fair.
I think it's part of who I am, definitely.
Excellent.
I like to consider myself an athlete because, athletes come in all shapes and sizes, don't they? So you can define that however you like.
Indeed. So for those that don't have an idea as to who you are and don't know your story, give us a bit of a brief MO, a brief genesis story as to what got you to this point in your life.
Okay, so in case you haven't noticed, you haven't because you're not going to see me on the screen, are you? No one's going to see me on the screen.
Well, there's going to be a couple of highlight clips, all right. Okay. There's going to be a couple, but for those of you that can't, those of you that can't see, all right, and you might have noticed in the podcast cover and whatnot for this episode, Kerryn's missing a bit of herself.
Yes. So let's start there. So I am an amputee. I'm an upper limb amputee, and that has helped shape my life over the last 10 years since I became an amputee. So I work. So let's start with my work first. I run my own personal training business called 9 Lives Training. I also train and race as a para-triathlete. So that involves swimming, riding, and running. What else can I tell you? I'm an avid animal lover. My cat may be part of this program at some stage. She would like to come soon. And I do a bit of public speaking on the side as well. And just love and adventure. That's me.
Well, public speaking is something that she needs to move up in her priority list because she's a bloody inspirational public speaker, I have to say, having heard her firsthand. But you mentioned you are an amputee. Now, let's just for the benefit of the listeners, just go into a little bit more detail. So you're an upper body amputee. Tell us exactly what you've had amputated, and just give us the very brief synopsis as to why that came to be.
Yeah, sure, Andy. So 10 years ago, I was riding my push bike over in Adelaide. I had a minor cycling accident, but I got a wound in my right elbow from the accident, and a bacteria got into that wound, and it's a bacteria that was called necrotizing fasciitis, which is also known as a flesh-eating disease. Now, NF, as I like to call it, is quite rare and it's quite aggressive and can be fatal if not treated early. So by the time I got to hospital, the bacteria was quite advanced and I wasn't expected to live. The way to keep me alive or try and keep me alive at that point was to amputate my arm and entire shoulder. It's called a 4-quarter arm amputation. So I have no shoulder at all, no shoulder blade, and I lost all the muscles down my side. The bacteria basically eats away all your muscles and fibers. So that was the only way they could sort of keep me alive, which they were able to do. Fortunately, I ended up spending 3 months in hospital. I had 11 surgeries. Was given less than 5% chance of survival initially. Fortunately, I was very fit, and that helped me to survive. But it was a long journey. I was in multiple organ failure for about a week, so on life support.
Wow.
So it was a really challenging time of my life, and probably one of the hardest things about that was I actually didn't know what had happened at all. By the time I arrived in hospital, I was starting to lose consciousness, and it was literally about 10 days later when I was woken up out of life support that I found out what had actually happened to me, and then I had to kind of rebuild the story because I didn't really know the story through what other people were telling me. And then it started a very long journey of recovery and rehabbing.
Which is a mental genesis, gang. And I am sure there'll be a whole bunch of people that are listening to this that have just sat back in their chair. And I dare say there's going to be a couple of you that will be like, did I just hear that right? So I would encourage you, before you listen to the rest of this podcast, maybe just play that little section back because you talk about adversity. And I stress what Kerryn just said there, minor bike accident. It wasn't like her arm was hanging off by a thread or anything like that. She had a minor accident that just some complete bad luck, had a bacteria wander in through and rip into her system. Like, you can't get much more bad luck than that, right? And it's not like, you know, Kerryn, I'm sure it's not like you were being stupid and pulling wheelies and all that sort of stuff. It was professional. You're doing a professional ride. You're doing professional training. You know, because were you in the midst of working towards Ironmans at that stage?
Actually, that accident happened. It was just a social ride.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just like literally coming back down through the Adelaide Hills, and I got hit by another cyclist. I was riding conservatively and sensibly, as I always did. And it was just, like you said, it was complete bad luck where I fell. They think the bacteria probably came off the road where I was lying, waiting for an ambulance.
Yeah.
You know, and the medical team told me over again, you know, you could have fallen, you know, a couple of meters to the right or the left, and it would have just been a minor bike accident. They would have sewn me up and off I would have gone. You know what I mean? So just random bad luck.
Absolutely mental. Now, Kerryn, we like to kick things off more formally by asking every single guest of this beloved podcast of ours the one question that we're all here to try and define and assist in helping others achieve their version of high performance. Now, I believe that high performance comes in the form of 4 elements, being success, influence, connection, and happiness, and no one can survive without the other 3. Very interested to hear your definition, though, of a high performance human. So, Kerryn, what is your definition?
Yeah, high performance human. I had a chance to have a good think about it, and I think it starts with recognizing what you're passionate about, and not just recognizing it, then going ahead and actioning that, and spending your time and energy doing those things that you are passionate about, and just I think for me that brings me happiness, which is part of your 4 elements. Is involving myself in things that make me happy and bring me joy, and I'm trying to think of the word I'm trying to think of. It will come to me. Sorry, being very unprofessional here.
That's all right.
Yeah, give me 1 second. There's something else I want to say back about that. It's just gone from me for a minute.
It's okay. So recognition of one's passion and then taking action towards it. I've been doing a lot of work around flow, right? And that whole topic of flow and the things that contribute towards that. And the more I dig down into it, the more I realize that you can't artificially create passion for something. It needs to be a DNA thing that bubbles up in you that you can't control.
Yeah.
In a positive way, obviously. And when I think about your definition just there, and listening and looking back at your history and what you've been doing and what you managed to achieve, I don't think, I don't think you would have, and this is just a broad statement, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you mentioned there that it was because you were fit that you managed to drag yourself through and past death's door, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel that without your passion, you would exist today?
No.
That's bloody
No.
powerful, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah. And I've thought of the other thing I was going to say as well.
Go.
I think the high performing human, when, like for me, finding that passion and that happiness and joy in what I do every day, it brings out the best in me as well. It brings out the best version of me. And I think that's really important too, that, I'm not just rolling along, not really pushing myself and my limits.
Yeah.
Whereas now I feel like I am, and I do.
Constant. Yeah. And I really like that recognition. The fact that in order to be a high performance human, you have to bring the best version of yourself. And let's face it, gang, we are all human. This is the crux of the human part of this entire podcast, is that with us being human, we need to make sure that each one of those four elements are working together in order to culminate in this symphony of that is high performance. And a lot of people tend to think, if ever I presented this as a challenge or as a topic of conversation to a group or whatever, I ask them, if you were to put those four elements in order, right, of which one comes first, second, third, fourth, what order would you put them in? And it's crazy to think, right, that most of them put happiness last as a result of achieving the other three. And then that way the happiness bit then feeds back into the top as a cyclical sort of movement, right?
Yeah.
Well, what you're pointing out here is so critical for us all to understand, is that in order to give yourself a shot of achieving a level of success that you have the potential within you to achieve, you need to be happy in who you are and where you are and what you're doing to give yourself a shot of having the right kind of energy. Is that fair?
Oh, I totally agree. 100%.
That's
100%.
fascinating. Yeah. Now, let's dig into that a little bit, because you mentioned that since your amputation, you've gone on to become a Paralympic, a para-athlete, and you've represented Australia and achieved incredible amounts of success that makes me feel really, really lazy. I'm not going to lie. So just to highlight a couple of things around the success points. You know what I'm referring to in terms of your Australia representation. Just let everybody know what you've managed to achieve post amputation.
Okay, so thank you. In the sporting side of things, I suppose, I recognised pretty early on that I wanted to try and get back in doing the sport that I loved. I was already a triathlete before my amputation. So part of my getting better was setting myself the goal of getting fit again and seeing if I could do these sports again. So relearning to ride, relearning to run, and relearning to swim. So over a couple of years, I did all these things. I learned how to do these sports again with one arm. And then I realised that I was actually potentially could be quite competitive in the para triathlon field. So I went down that path and found that I was competitive and ended up getting into the Australian elite para triathlon team. And I was with them for, I think, 4 or 5 years and travelled around Australia racing and ended up going to 3 World Championships, which was just the most incredible experience, something I never dreamed I would be doing at that level. And very lucky to, well, I would say luck, it was a lot of hard work. I came second in Chicago in the 2015 World Champs, and then picked up a bronze in Rotterdam the following year a bronze in Rotterdam in the World Champs. So, and the next one I went to was Gold Coast, where I got a fourth. That was my first time off the podium. The whole time competing as a paratriathlete. So that's kind of when I thought I might retire. I was competing against people half my age most of the time, so I already had age against me, but I reckon I did pretty well down that sporting path for as long as it lasted.
Second in a World Championships. I don't give a stuff whether it's para athletes or abled athletes or any fleet, right? I don't give a stuff. Coming second in a World Championships is pretty bloody phenomenal, Kerryn. It really is. Yeah, you mentioned it was a phenomenal experience and surreal and all the rest of it. Like, you would have never seen in a million years that was in your future, right?
Oh, no way.
When it arrived upon you, like in the immediate aftermath of achieving silver in the World Championships, how were you feeling at that point? In that period of reflection on what you've achieved and the story you've written to even be in that position. What sort of emotions were drilling up? Like what the hell was going on in your head?
What's quite overwhelming in a way, because it was only that first World Championships was only 2.5 years post my amputation. So it was all very,
That's
very
mental.
fast how it happened. Yeah.
That is mental. 2.5 years having had a four-quarter amputation, losing your shoulder, and you then go on to represent Australia in the World Championships.
Yeah, and I'd only been back racing full stop for 6 months. It's taken me 2 years just to get my fitness level back to a point where I could start racing, and my confidence and all the rest of it that came with it. So it was like a whirlwind, to be honest, Andy. It really was. It was surreal, and I kept on. Every time now when I achieve something great, I always think back to how low and how bad it was at my worst point, when I didn't think I would survive. And I didn't think, even if I did, I thought I would be so severely disabled that I wouldn't be able to do very much. I always think back to that, and it makes me feel so grateful that I had so many fantastic people around me and people that believed in me, and I also had the innate drive to go down that path and go for it. I'll be forever grateful to have that opportunity come to me from something that started off as such a extremely adverse situation. So even now it sort of makes me almost tear up just even thinking about it.
Well, you've within 2.5 years, you've gone from literally about to lose your life to going to represent Australia, doing something that you love, and then moving forward, going on and achieving the number 2 in the world at something that you love. The contrast of emotions would be enough to fry anybody, I would have thought. So on that, there would have been a blowback, an aftermath of emotions, I would have thought, right? There would have been an absolute outpouring of what went on.
Yeah.
Once the dust had settled in on that, and equilibrium sort of came back into your psyche a little bit more, what were the lessons that you took from that achievement and that 2.5-year trip that now help you on the regular in terms of striving for that next level of high performance? Because you don't sit still. So what were the lessons that you learned from those 2.5 years, both from yourself in terms of internal, but also external in terms of what's required to achieve the level of high performance that you undeniably achieved?
Yeah, I think internally for me, it was a real realization that when you think there's no hope left, there always is. You know what I mean? There's always something, and whatever it is, that tiny bit of an opportunity I had to live again. I went on and I did this great thing, and and had this amazing experience. So I think for me, it was like never giving up hope completely that all is complete disaster and throw your hands in there, like there's nothing left for me, because no matter what your situation is, there always is that little grain of hope that you can just grab onto. It's just enough to get you through to the next step, and then the next step and the next step. So that, I think for me, that internally, that's how I processed it, I suppose. And externally, it's about just having those people, having people around you. You've got to have your people, and you've got to lean on your people, because I didn't do this alone. You know, it took, there would be hundreds of people that were involved from my moment in hospital going all the way through to representing Australia at those World Champs. There would be hundreds and hundreds of people who were part of that journey. And I probably leaned on every one of them at some point in time to help me through another bit or work out how to do something. So for me, that's the external part of it, is surrounding yourself with good people, and you can never have enough. You know what I mean? You can never have enough. I'm always just dragging people in. That's kind of how I roll. So yeah, for me, that was critical.
Now, just on that point, then, I'm really glad that you mentioned the need for good people around you in order to elevate, you know, what is possible for you. When it comes to high performance, it cannot, you know, I do believe that it cannot be an individual effort, right? It needs to be a sum of a collective. And I'm a huge fan, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. The purpose of that book is to help people to achieve interdependence, which is the mutual connection of one independent person to another, and then finding a mutually beneficial outcome that is higher as a sum, as opposed to the two parts. So let's dig into that a little bit, because, you know, we all, as unbelievably driven. I mean, you must have a nerve of some sort of metal that hasn't been discovered yet, because it's so incredibly tough and resolute, whatever you are made up of inside of you, Kerryn. It's just like you have an ability that you don't hear about all too often. And so, but we all have weak moments. And I think of all the people who've had an excuse to have a weak moment, I think you've got one of the better ones, right? So when it comes to the contribution that other people have made, whether it's physically, mentally, spiritually, whatever, when have you found that because tell me if I'm wrong, would you experience moments right now, the amount that you've come along and whatnot, there would be moments where you feel that you need some help of some description? So I know that it was obvious at the start, but you will have learned the triggers that allow you to go, right, I need someone for this, I need someone for that, I need someone for the other.
Yeah.
What are those triggers within you? And before you had the accident, did you find it any more difficult to ask for help?
Yes, I can answer that last question first, probably. Yes, I probably did find it difficult to ask for help pre my accident. Yeah, I would have just probably bottled things up and just tried to muddle my way through, or just not do it at all. So yeah, that's definitely become something I've become very good at, mainly because I kind of had to. And I certainly would recommend that to anyone now. Like, it's so critical, like you said. You need your people, and together, like as a collective, you can achieve so much more sometimes. I can't remember the rest of your question.
So what are the triggers within you that really fire up that shit? I need to send a flare up. I need help.
Yeah, I think it's for me. Sometimes it might be something I've got coming up. And every time I'm doing something I haven't done before, I have to think it through in my head, going, okay, can I do this independently? Do I need help? And am I going to be able to do this? Big thing for me is like travel. If I go on a plane, especially if I go overseas or something, which I've done a couple of times by myself now, but it's taken me like 8 years to get to that point of going overseas by myself. It's really challenging going through airports with your luggage, trying to pull out passports, paperwork, glasses, pens. It's nearly impossible, and that's overwhelmingly hard. And people don't realize that. Like, you don't realize how hard this is. You know, not in the bag. I can't go to the loo while I've got this bag because I can't leave it anywhere.
Yeah.
Stupid stuff, you know.
Oh, wow.
So I guess for me, going the bottom line is it's me thinking through. Okay, what am I doing? If I haven't done something before, I think, oh, because I never want to get in a situation where I'm in the situation like, oh my God, I can't do this. I'm stuck. And I have been stuck in situations before, but yeah, I hope that kind of answers your question. But for me, I always pre-plan if it's something that I'm a bit like, oh, I don't do a lot of like travel or that I previously haven't put myself through before.
I think the biggest thing that we can take from that is a massive lesson. But the biggest thing that we can take it like that, because we always talk about things like, you know, cliched lines like preparation precedes results and all that sort of stuff, and the importance of preparation in one's life and whatnot. But what I think we really need to take from Kerryn's last answer was that Kerryn has been forced to take her preparation to a granular level, to the point of when it, you know, going overseas, understanding how she's going to be able to go to the bathroom, how she's going to be able to have all the documentation, how she's going to be able to carry her bags, the attention to detail that you have been forced into, you know, into working out and calculating. That in itself is something that I feel we all need to pay attention to, team, because a lot of us do preparation of some degree or to some extent, and some of us visualize what the outcomes are and so on and so forth. But I would like us to be challenged by Kerryn here in the sense of, are we preparing ourselves whatever it is we want to do and whatever it is we want to achieve? Are we preparing to enough detail with what we do? I mean, just off that example that you've explained to me now, Kerryn, I'm thinking to myself, I'm thinking, shit, I'm nowhere near prepared enough for half the stuff I do. I prepare, but I'm nowhere near ready. Like in comparison to the readiness that you need in order to, you know, basic functionality and whatnot in terms of traveling and what have you. Because traveling's a complicated process that we all sort of take for granted anyway. But that's fascinating. That's the sort of granular level and I suspect anybody that has got physical disabilities or whatever it is, that is something that I think a lot of us need to really pay attention to a much greater degree. And what a lot of people that have got physical disadvantages like that, you can teach us, you can teach the rest of us so much around the understanding and the need for preparation in order to make sure that everything runs smoothly. So with things like that, because your next trip is a Tokyo Marathon, believe it or not, team. She's not kidding here. She's laughing, but she's legit. She's going to Tokyo in March to do a marathon. God help her. Now you stick travel on top of a marathon in a foreign city. Talk to me through some of the early preparations that you are working through now, because you mentioned before we started, you're 13 weeks away. So what's the sort of preparatory process that you're going through early on?
Okay, so for me, interestingly, the most nerve-wracking part of this trip is not the marathon. It's arriving there in Tokyo by myself, not knowing the language, not knowing really how. I got to catch some train to the hotel I'm staying at, not knowing where it is, and trying to deal with all the other stuff I talked about before on top of it, you know, your bags of paperwork, blah, blah, blah. So for me, that's the most nerve-wracking part. So at the moment, I'm going through, I'm traveling with a marathon tour company who I'll meet over there, but I'm trying to find, my next thing to do is try and find someone in that group who's hopefully on the same flight as me that can assist me or work with me at the other end, collective, and we can find our way together, which will make my life slightly easier, you know, because I can, they don't realize it yet, but I might be just offloading a few things to them.
Yes. Hey, just stand there while I go to the bathroom and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, all that kind of thing. So yeah, so that's, but like the marathon will take care of itself because I know how to train for it. You know, that's it won't be easy, but it's for me, I know I can do it. I've done it before. But it's that whole new thing of, okay, I've never been to Japan. I don't know the language, don't even know one word of the language. I can't read the signage unless it's in English, and just not knowing anything about where anything is in Tokyo. So that'll be, yeah. So my bit of everything, I think I've prepared everything else as well as I can. I've got bags that are the easiest bags for me to use and carry, and blah, blah, blah. It's more about that one little moment in time when I arrive and I've got to get from A to B. That's my most.
I don't know if this is going to sound like a daft question or not. Do you think that's going to be a bigger achievement for you than the actual marathon?
Well, you don't get a medal for it. That's the thing.
So tell me,
when I get to the hotel, I'll be relieved. I'll go, oh, phew! All I've got to do now is run the marathon.
You're going to start do a little victory speech to yourself in the mirror. I want to thank my cat, and I want to thank.
Trying to help me between Tokyo Airport and
yeah. Right. I want to ask a very simple question. Why the hell are you doing it?
Why am I doing it? Because that's what I do. I mean, that's what I love, challenging myself physically. I love going on destination adventures where you go and do some physical challenge. In this instance, it's a marathon, and I get to go and see the country after that. So that's probably one of my favorite things to do. And plus, I'll be there with a group of people who are all like-minded. So you get to hang out with these people that I've never met before, haven't met yet, and just find out stuff about them and chat to different people from all over the world. And it's a huge event. Tokyo Marathon is one of the major marathons in the world, of which there are only 6. And over the next few years, I'd like to knock off all 6 and use it as an excuse to travel. So yeah, that's just part of my makeup is really pushing myself physically and seeing how far what I can do and how far I can go. And I tell you what, I was already doing a lot of this stuff prior to becoming an amputee, and it did help me through that period of recovery and rehab, knowing that I've been through some really physically hard stuff. I've done an Ironman and I've run marathons before. I know how deep I have to dig to get through this stage. Hopefully you come out the other side. So I did use a lot of that stuff I already had in me to help me through that amputee or amputation recovery.
Now you've got a personal training business, 9 Lives, which I'm guessing is in relation to the fact that you've probably gone through about 7 of them, because we haven't even mentioned the challenge that you went through prior to your amputation, which was another sort of pseudo life-threatening challenge as well. And of your love of cats, I'm guessing, hence the 9 Lives bit. But I want to sort of take a bit of a 90-degree turn. When you have clients in your personal training business and they come to you and they're obviously wanting to get fitter and get healthier and all the rest of it, and you see them halfway through a particular exercise that you've tasked them with, and they're looking like they're about to give up, right? You would see that on countless occasions, and and any PT would see that sort of stuff. But having gone through everything that you've gone through, I'm not saying that you stand there and judge people, right? But do you look at society sometimes and think, geez, like if some of you guys could just harden up, or if some of you guys can just sort yourselves out, then my word, you could achieve great things. I mean, surely, I know I don't want to sound like we are patronizing people that are going through their own challenges or anything like that, but I think at some point or another, this conversation needs to be had when there are people like yourself who have gone through serious trauma, and you had to learn how to bloody run again, swim again, pedal a bike again, functionality, starting from scratch, essentially.
Yep.
Do you have the momentary lapse? Because you are a very, very incredibly positive person. Do you sometimes have a look at the state of some people and the things that they whinge at and the first world problems that they have and go, seriously, man, I hope you don't face anything major?
you try not to, but it's hard. Like you said, it's hard not to, you know, you try not to be judgy, but it is hard not to judge sometimes. And I think everyone has the ability to go through and do things like what I've done. Everyone. It's whether you choose to go down that path or not. And it's whether you choose to get out of your comfort zone and just really push yourself beyond what you think you're capable of. A lot of people, I think, and I could be wrong, a lot of people like living in a little comfortable spot, and then you know, that zone where it's all safe, and they find it hard to step outside. Where I'm sort of feel like I'm constantly challenging that in myself, and I think that's been a great way to grow and build confidence in yourself, and I think I've got a pretty good understanding of, yes, you think you've 8 reps is all you've got, but I guarantee you've probably got 12 at least in you, really. Really pushed yourself and really concentrated and, you know, wanted to progress. But not everyone is like that. But everyone has it.
And that's the point that I was kind of hoping that you would come to, because the whole premise of this podcast is to make high performance more achievable, and it's to make it more accessible to people. But there are 1 or 2 things that are a requirement as a cost to entry. Now, you've mentioned on a couple of occasions already in this conversation of your desire to take yourself out of the comfort zone. And I think you could guarantee that, again, cliche line, progress is always found outside the comfort zone, or whichever variation of that you want to use. But when it comes to high performance, Kerryn, how important is it to you to keep testing yourself the way that you do? Like, if you weren't to say do Tokyo, if you were to stop doing marathons and stuff, what effect do you think that would have on you?
Yeah, it would be. I think it would be really hard for me to not be able to go after these challenges. Would I find something else? Undoubtedly, I would, but it would probably take a little while to work out what that is. I mean, you know, maybe it's climbing mountains, or maybe it's. I would find something else. There's no doubt about it. I would not sit on my hands for my hand for too long before I would. I'd find something else, because I'm always looking for the next thing, you know, whatever that is. But yeah, it would be hard. And there was a period there, like lockdown for me was very, very hard. Because I couldn't race, I couldn't go after these challenges. So it was difficult for many reasons, obviously for the same of all of us, you know, all the other stuff that went on with it, but I couldn't do what I needed to do that was really, I thought, helpful for me, for my mental health. So yeah, I found that very, very challenging. So once, now I can do it again, I'm in a much better place.
And so do you feel, therefore, that being outside of the comfort zone and challenging yourself, is that very much a part of your identity, or is that something, is that something that you felt you've had your whole life, or is that something that you have discovered along the way is something that is so unbelievably and critically important to you?
I think I discovered it along the way, as I've been through a few setbacks. I think in fact, the setbacks have opened me up to thinking, well, hang on, what am I doing? You know, there's more to life. I don't want to live in my comfort zone. You know, I don't want to waste another minute. And, you know, you mentioned I'd been through a setback earlier. At least I had cancer 23 years ago, which was a setback. And I learned a lot through that. And then after nearly losing my life through my amputation, I felt like, you know what, this could end tomorrow. Like, I know, probably became even more driven and more wanting to take on challenges and do different things, because it might all end tomorrow. So look, come on, let's get going, people. I want to do these things while I can, while I'm still young enough to be able to go and do them, and before, you know, I can't do them anymore, because at some point, turning point. So, yeah.
Now,
question.
I want to, just off the back of that, how could, in your opinion, because you've gone through crazy, crazy things in order to get to this conclusion. How can we help people that haven't gone through anything like that, right, to discover that desire to want to test yourself? Like, what are the things that we can do and that you could recommend and foresee with your observations that you've had in over the time? What are the elements, in your opinion, that can help people to discover this fire that is shining bright from you? How can they discover that from themselves without jumping off a bike and, you know, trying to find a bacteria and all this sort of stuff?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I don't think everyone necessarily wants to do it. That's the thing. Some people probably do, but they don't know where to start. And they're the ones you can probably impact on the most. And I think it's about, you know, you've got one that's from, well, working out like I did what I was passionate about and chasing that up and what is it, and having a real good think about it and going, that's what I'm going to do because I love doing that. And that's how I want to spend my days. So I think people need to sit down and have a really good hard think about what they want to spend their time doing. We don't have an infinite amount of time. So, and then how am I going to get there? Goal setting. How am I going to get there? What do I need to do to get to that point? You know, it might be writing a book or drawing art or something. It doesn't have to be sport, but obviously mine is. And then how do I get there? I need to do this course, or I need to do that, or I need to speak to these people, I need to start networking with these people on LinkedIn, whatever it is, to start the conversations. And as those things grow, probably the excitement will then grow in that person. They go, oh, actually, maybe I can do this. And then they take that next little step and reach that next little mini goal. And all of a sudden they're on this roll and they're working towards what they really want to do.
Do you think that, you said that you've mentioned there a couple of times that some people don't want to do it, all right? And that's fine. And that's fine. And let's face it, those people probably aren't listening to this podcast anyway, right? Or they're listening to it and going, yeah, screw that. I'd rather just live a rather mediocre life, thanks. And they're comfortable with that, and that's totally cool. But for those people that really don't know where to start, and you've talked about that need to find your passion, and I concur with that wholeheartedly. You know, auctioneering was the smashing of the gates for me. What would you suggest would be actions that people can take? You know, so picture someone that's coming to you as a new client in your personal training business, and they're coming to you because they want to get fit. But let's face it, generally speaking, people want to get fit because of something bigger, and they would share that with you at various stages because you're a very inviting person and whatnot. If someone comes to you and says, look, I want to get fit because I'm just really at a bit of a loss in my life in terms of where I want to be and who I want to be and what I want to be and so on and so forth, but I need some sort of sense of achievement. What are the suggestions that you could put forward to those people that are listening to this and just wanting to see where that glimmer of hope that you've mentioned before can come from?
Look, I'd probably suggest that they have some end goal, or not an end goal, but a partway goal potentially, like a goal. Okay, so what do I want to do? I want to go, I've never run before, I want to go and run a 5K park run, for instance. And some people that come to me and they will say that they've never run before. So we firstly we teach them how to run, and I put them on a structured program. They'll see me once a week, and we'll increase the running every week, and might be a bit of walking at the start because they can't run for long. And 4 weeks later, they've run 20 minutes or something, and they're like, oh, this is from nothing. So I think they need a goal. I think you need something to work towards. Otherwise, it's like this, I'm doing it, but where's the reward? Where's the celebration of having achieved something? You need some sort of goal. And that could be, it could be anything, it could be a triathlon. It could be lifting an extra however many kilos, deadlifting or whatever. It could be anything, but I think you need a goal.
So a focus, would you say that it would be accurate to suggest that if you are wanting to start a journey towards a level of high performance because you feel that you've got more within you to give, you've got more within you to achieve, and you feel that you can be, you feel that you can fulfill your own self-worth to a greater extent, would you suggest then, Kerryn, that having some sort of external focus that is outside of you is really important in order for you to start putting the wheels in motion?
As in, sorry,
so an external focus. So like it could be a tangible goal like a 5-kilometer run, or it could be learning to play the piano, or something external that allows you to start to discover who you are through the process of going towards that goal.
Yeah, absolutely. There's many elements, isn't there? Yes, you could come to me and we could do that goal just with me. Yes, that is one option. You don't get the lights and the medal and the whatever, but you get a pat on the back from me. Great. But I think you need to be able to go and say, do that 5K fun run, run down that finisher chute, have your name called out, get a medal at the end. You've got your friends there, your family there, everyone's giving you pats on the back, and go out and have a drink with everyone at the end. That's an awesome thing to do. But also and that's the same if it's piano. It might be you go and take your lessons, and I'm assuming you go through different levels of whatever on the piano, and there's still mini goals, and they still, then you work towards the next one, and there's still little celebrations along the way, which are all very important. Yeah, so I think you can do it either way, but I think externally, potentially a lot more rewarding for that person.
Yeah, fair. Now, Kerryn, I could talk to you for ages, man. I really, really could. But I'm conscious. I'm conscious that you probably won't need to go run around somewhere or do something, right? You're probably bursting off your chair at this stage. So I don't want to chain you down for too much longer. There is one question though that I have started to ask our guests, which I'm really glad I've started asking, and I want you to reflect on where you're at now. And you've got your immediate goal of Tokyo Marathon, but you've mentioned then that you want to tick off the big 6. So let me ask you, in your pursuit of your version of high performance, what is the one thing that you feel you need the most help with right now?
The one thing I need the most help with right now would be, it's still for me very much about the people around me for everything that I achieve, right? Even now. I need people to train with. I need people to celebrate with. That all makes it worthwhile for me. So I'm probably not answering this question very well at all. I'm sorry.
No, I think that's a beautiful answer.
Yeah, it's the people around me that, and I've fortunately got a lot of like-minded people around me, which might make them as crazy as probably I am, and they're all high achievers in their sports fields as well, and we love supporting each other. We love when our training paths cross and we can train together, and we love celebrating each other's milestones. So, for me, that's a big part of what it's about. Perhaps my own internal satisfaction of achieving what I want to achieve, but being able to celebrate it and have other people being part of it is really, really special.
That is a beautiful answer. The need to, or the constant need to have people to share your success with, that's a wonderful thing to marinate on, team, for everybody that's listening. I am a firm believer in that abundance is irrelevant unless you have people to share it with. And the same could be applied to success. That success part of high performance, is there such a thing as a successful hermit? Is there such a thing as success if you don't get to feel the adulation and the energy and the aura of others that have either helped contribute towards that success or have achieved a similar level of success alongside you.
Mm.
A lot of people think that success is a solo game, and a lot of people define success in different ways. But what I love about that answer is the fact that you need people to share in that success with you, because otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah, yeah. And it's just a quick example before you get rid of me. When I did the Melbourne Half Ironman 2.5 weeks ago in St Kilda, and I had a lot of friends in that race and a lot of friends on the sidelines and a lot of friends volunteering, or just people I know in the sport. And for me, it wasn't crossing that finish line. I mean, the finish line was great, but it was all the camaraderie out on the course and all the volunteers who were just yelling out at me and just being just amazing, and just the spectators on the sidelines just giving me a real rev up. That to me was the highlight.
That's incredible. What an amazing way to bring this episode to a head. Kerryn Harvey, thank you so much for your time, for your story, for the level of inspiration that you exude, not because of what you've been through, but the attitude that you demonstrate on a daily basis towards life, towards achievement, towards success, towards endeavor is something that I wish we could bottle up, because if some people could just take a swig of what you exude on a daily basis, I tell you now, they'll be a damn sight closer towards achieving some level of high performance within themselves. Of that, I have no doubt. So thank you so much for your time and your inspiration and your honesty around your story and what have you. And I would be absolutely, and I'm sure the community, this high performance community, would be the same. We'd love to have you back at some stage as well, and sharing more in your story and really providing a different contrast, because a lot of the episodes that we've had to date, there've been a lot more people that are more in the business sort of mindset and what have you. But ultimately, whatever challenges many have faced in the business world, it pales into insignificance compared to the successes and the achievements that you've had, having been put up with some extremely high hurdles to overcome. So I cannot, and I'm so grateful to have crossed paths with you. I really, really am. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Andy. I really appreciate the invitation to come on. It's been great.
All right then, team. Look, you should be able to reach Kerryn, and we'll make sure that we'll put her Instagram handles and whatnot in the show notes below the episode. Make damn sure that you follow this person, because if you want a natural source of inspiration, then this is the human for you. And if you're feeling that you're making some excuse up as to why you're not putting your trainers on to go for a little jog, then just have a quick scan down her profile, and then just reconsider how lazy you actually want to be. All right, just reconsider your position there. Until that time, though, my friends, make sure you stay safe, healthy, and happy. And of course, please feel free to reach out if we can help you in any way, shape, or form. Until next time, gang, thanks for joining us on the High Performance Human podcast.